Hello, everybody. I'm back for a little bit. If you haven't been paying attention, I'm moving to a secret location. That's not the sketch cave, what you see here. In the meantime, I got a few things I'm going to put up on the SketchCraft YouTube page. One being tonight, an audio commentary, speed paint for the Jungle Girl Lights Camera Jungle Kickstarter going on right now. Few more days. It's the only place to get the cover. If you'd like to, let's all take a trip down memory lane. Let's check it out really quickly. Oh, shuckers. Don't you like it when Windows loads up and totally gives you the wrong thing to click on? Jungle. Let me just remind you folks what we're talking about here. Here we go. All right. Cinti. So this, whoa, come here. There we go. This is the cover we're talking about. The final full color version, all complete. The real-time videos are currently up right now. But this is what we're going to watch in speed time. I sped it up, I don't know, like 10 times, something like that. So we're going to watch that right now. And joining me to talk about that would be Brandon Super Heavy. That's fucked up. Lead Heavy James. Brandon, say hello.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone.
If we just combine Mega Potato with Lead Heavy and we get Mega Heavy, am I being an asshole?
I hope everyone can hear me over my fat. I hope you can hear me over my fatness.
Sounds like boba.
I'm staying up for this. So let's do it.
I'm going to be chewing on boba. Guys, you're going to have to deal with it because I went and saw a family member. Well, a stepfather of mine, probably the only family, it's my last one. It's the only one I got left. My father died, my mom died. I got the stepfather, and he treated me to this Italian dinner out in where he lives, and it's horrible. It's horrible food, but I ate it, because I'm nice, and it was bad. It's bad food, so I need to eat something while we talk here. And I figured since I already had shitty food, let's have some not so good for me drink. Let's watch this thing, shall we? I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up. And let's go to desktop. Vithead. All right. So this right here is the line arts in Photoshop, and I'm just gonna go ahead now and hit play, and we can watch this roll right along. Right. Here we go. So this right here, what you're seeing, those are the selection flats and then the coloring flats, right, Brandon?
Correct.
And the selection flats, you did.
I did. I'm a part of this.
And then I went and made the coloring flats. And the difference between the two?
I set up all the colors that need to be separated, all the areas, so the girl's skin tones or hair colors, and then you go in and put the actual base colors you want to use over that.
Yeah.
That you'll later do the shading and such on.
Which is what you're seeing here now. So basically what I've done is I filled it all up with a darker color. That's what that purple is. Let's go right over here. That's her filled up with the purple color, set to linear burn. I jump around. Sometimes it's an overlay and a multiply. Sometimes it's just linear light. Sometimes it's a linear burn with something else. It depends on the kind of tone I'm going for. Sometimes I want a more saturated color. Sometimes I want less saturated color. But essentially I darken it first, and then in a mask, which you see right there, I paint in the highlight versus the difference, which most people add shadows, right, Brandon?
Right.
What's the benefit to painting it in the light versus the darks?
I would say it's better for all your, in my opinion, which will probably be wrong, the light sources. It gives you a better vibe of where you're coming with all your lights instead of if you're darkening things, you're just kind of darkening areas you think that need to be dark.
Yeah,
Plus,
something like that. Yeah. I think obviously if the piece is going to mainly be in the light and there's very little shadow, do the opposite. Paint in the
mhm,
shadow. If it's going to be a little bit more dramatic and you want to have large areas of shade and a really key light, do what I'm doing here. It's really good for drama. Like if you want a nice dramatic light source, really easier to do it this way. Takes less time. Now, because it's going to be a cover, by the way, folks, if you haven't figured it out already, this cover is an homage to Spider-Man 300, famous Todd McFarlane cover, which I get props to. Tom wanted and another McFarlane homage, and I'm apparently the dude they call
right.
when it comes time to do that. So
This is your second one, right after the critter.
yeah, I did the Critter one, which was an homage to Spider-Man issue one, Spider-Man issue 100. This is an homage to Amazing Spider-Man 300, which he
Nice.
obviously did first. So instead of the webbings, I gave her the jungle vines here. So I'm trying to paint in different leaves. Now, I probably wouldn't do it this way if I had it over to do it over again. Initially, in the original line arts, I actually drew all these vines,
Uh-huh.
and then when I went to ink her, I redrew them and decided to add all this extra stuff right here. What you see, the vinage and the leaves and color. But I already drew a lot of this shit initially. I should have just kept the roughy lines and only inked her and the plushies. So it's
Right.
something that I'm kind of going over right now. Like, how much do I draw? How much do I
I
ink
paint.
digitally? And then how much do I just keep of the old inks and paint over? You know?
Yeah.
So, and I used to do them all with gradient maps, and now I'm trying to figure out which ones are more economical to do with gradient maps, which ones are easier to just paint in color.
Do you do you think you, if let's say since you're painting all these leaves and the foliage that kind of flies off and stuff, do you think it has more of a whimsical look when you just do it like that with the
Yes.
paintbrush compared to, yeah.
Yeah. But I wouldn't do though, as you see here, I made all these lines really clean and perfect. I
Hmm.
would have kept the ones that were inked initially.
Gotcha.
There was no sense to come here and manually clean all this stuff up. That's what I'm trying to say. Her, yeah, it's because when I draw with mechanical lead and Copic multiliners,
Uh-huh.
and the lines are they don't have great line quality. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, it varies too. I mean, it goes thin, thicker, thin. You know, it has a real grit to it.
Yeah, it
Also,
has a really grip, but when you want nice smooth inks, digital. So on the characters, it makes more sense to do the digital inks, but the backgrounds can be those rougher inks with paint over because they don't need to be as perfect. Does that make sense?
hmm
So for some reason, I got in my head to try. I don't know. I'm just draw over it. So this is me trying to add a bunch more foliage and stuff like that. To add more little vines and leaves and bits and stuff, trying to give it more energy. Basically, what I'm trying to do. What I really
right.
want to do is add tons of vegetables and flowers and shit, go fucking full crazy. But I'm trying not to create more work for myself. But if
You
I
were
had,
also on a time crunch. Didn't you have to? We had to get this done like in 2 nights or something. We
yeah, and
had
then I had to drive my ass out to Phoenix where we hung out and saw
right.
Suicide Squad. Right? Remember all that?
hmm
Yeah.
and you got to go to the launch party.
Yeah. Well, that was fun. I mean, it was nice to see Jen and Jeff Pena. Although poor Jeff, he drew a picture of Willy Wonka the other day and did that thing. You got to talk
Hmm
to your boy, bro.
Ah,
Got to talk some sense into him on that one. So now
oh,
these leaves in the background I'm adding. All I'm going to do is I want to add some jungle stuff. So I just paint some silhouettes of some jungle stuff, as you see there, and then I'm painting around that with some leaf brushes to add extra little jungle stuff. And then what I'm going to do is motion blur in Photoshop at an angle just to offset it a little bit. And then I paint over it and I motion blur a little bit. So it keeps it from looking 100% perfect, and you get those little extra leaves I didn't have to paint in, but it doesn't look like I used a fucking foliage brush. I don't know, Brandon, you ever see that where like all the trees are way too detailed and
yes.
symmetrical? Looks
hmm
weird, right?
It looks like they just used like a stamp. You know,
Yeah.
the pre-made
You know,
brush, and they
you know
just
why?
stamp, stamp, stamp.
You know why? Because
Why?
they use the stamp.
And it just looks so non, like there's no magic to it. It just stamp, stamp, stamp. Okay, this looks like trees.
And then I'm adding some dark saturated blue here just to pop some color into those shadows.
Uh-huh.
So it's not 100% black. It's actually got some color variation. And this is all before I've started coloring her. Like I'm just trying to set the tone. You can see back there. Now Tom wanted it to say Lights Camera Jungle all back there at the logo. That wasn't my call. I think in the I was showing people on the stream Game Cave
Without
stuff.
it.
No, I was showing them Game Cave stuff. So gotta remember sometimes when I'm doing this, folks, I get bored. So if you hang out in the chat room, speaking of which, is there anyone in the chat? Spidey joined a powerlifting club. Very cute. So
That was from 2 nights ago.
was that?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were making a joke about her.
No, that was from when we did the art tips for that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'll talk about that. But when people are in the chat, I do hang out and sometimes just take a break and show other stuff. So, but
When you
go ahead.
when you add the blue to the grass stuff in the front,
Mm-hmm.
are you when you send this off to like Tom, does he print? Do you have any control of how it gets printed to where things like that show up? Or, I know sometimes when we've known that you've sent stuff off to editors and they don't print it with the exact settings you have, and some of the colors get altered and things like that. Do you have any kind of input moving forward now with that, or
No,
that sucks?
this could print it completely dark.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, all this that you see, these shades, these vibrancies, a lot of times can be lost depending on who prints it and how they print it, which is
Yeah, I set my stuff up with proper ink densities and everything else. But what can happen is one of two things. One, they can print the web, the high-res web version, the RGB version, which can fuck up my settings because I send them a CMYK. Or two, they can run this image back through InDesign and spit out a PDF using some other pre-flight settings that screw up the ink densities. And half these guys don't really know shit about ink densities. Even guys that work at companies like Aspen or whatever, I was showing them the crepes a lot. Even these guys that work there professionally, they don't really know this stuff. Half of them are just guys that they're kind of like get paid to be an editor. Maybe they get to write a book here and there, and they help out and send files to a printer, and they just go, "Oh, the printer will tell me what to do." And how those guys work in the printers are all digital copy jockeys. They don't fucking know, and they're dicks about it too. So I've run everything from digital copiers to giant offset printing to oversized printing. So I know how this shit's supposed to be set up, So the last cover I did, unfortunately, printed super dark. Because I made that aware, and because this is a Kickstarter, I'm pretty certain it's not going to happen. So if you buy a copy right now on the Kickstarter and it's dark, that's just not going to happen. I mean, Tom's handling this one, and I've never had a problem with it. It was just that one cover, which was the Absent guys. So I hate to think, but I let Tom know. So I'm going to do what I can to remind him, being that this is a Kickstarter. I don't want people to get dark covers.
Right.
But that was that was an anomaly. So now I'm blocking in the light spots on her body. And what I'll do is I'll just surfacely, from pulling away, I'll block in the spots, and then I'll zoom in and clean up the sides. Some people like to use lasso tools while they do this. I don't really like to color with lasso tools. I can.
Right.
I just don't. It makes me feel like I'm making a t-shirt. I like to feel somewhat like I'm coloring with markers, and I have to get. I could be a little bit more faster if I use the lasso tools, but it wouldn't feel very artistic. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So sometimes people go, you can use the lasso tools. Yeah, I could. You know what I mean? Like I could do it with the mouse too, but like.
But then it's almost like you're just cutting out shapes and you're not really painting in.
Yeah, I try to use a lot of the same techniques here that I would use with markers. I try to move the brush in similar ways, and if you see me use markers, you'll notice like, oh, that's like how you do that when you're doing the digital back and forth, vice versa.
Right.
So, and then now I've zoomed in, and what I'm doing is around the edges, I take my brush and I just turn on this setting here, this setting, which makes it adds pressure sensitivity to the opacity. So if I go around the edge, it looks a little bit more painted. It's a cheap way of getting a painted look without actually painting. If you wanted a chalk look, you just take a chalk to the edge of that and make it all look like you did a chalk. It's just the edges. So, I mean, all in all, I think I colored this, 6 hours?
Something like that.
Yeah, so it didn't take that long, all things considered.
Was there any things you had problems with or didn't like, or you would change moving if you?
Selection flags were a motherfucker. No. One thing you did. Yeah, I don't think I should have redrawn with digital ink the vines and then added all that stuff on top. I think I should have just kept the original ones I drew with pens,
Hmm.
softened those inks, painted over it, and then maybe did a couple little tricks I have up my sleeve to make them look more painted. Just because drawing all those like here drawing all this stuff in thick and
Hmm.
thin, it can eat up that it probably ate up an hour to do the whole thing, but it's an hour I didn't need to do. You
Right.
know what I mean? And I think the energy that was in the original pencil one would have been better. So I'm trying to find a way to balance the clean sort of comic book cell shaded thing with this rough painted look. And here it's a little bit all clean, which is fine for the look of the piece, but I think it could have been a little bit more painterly with the vines and stuff. Like, I'm pretty picky, folks. Yeah. So we're almost halfway. The thing that kind of did get me a little bit is I'm just trying to make certain that as I add the light sources, she doesn't end up looking weird.
Hmm.
Sometimes you ever seen colors on chicks go weird, like their
Oh
faces
yeah.
end up a little wonky somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chaz says the legs are too thick and big feet. That's how I draw chicks, and those are the kind of women I live with. So if you don't like women with big feet and big legs, then don't buy the art, bro. You know. I'm done drawing for people, Brandon. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you want that nice, realistic Marvel look, you should go buy Marvel comics. So I like stylized people now. You know,
Yeah.
I've earned it. I think I'm 30 turned 38 this year. You know, I like drawing girls that have big feet.
We all got our own things, you know.
Yeah, we should
Yeah,
all
but I
make
mean,
them absolutely ballerina types, right?
right. You know, there's worse things to draw than just big feet. You know,
Because women don't
a
have
lot of
big feet or thick legs, right? That doesn't exist in the world.
right. So I think all things considered, when nowadays people are drawing some pretty gratuitous. I can't talk tonight.
Gratuitous.
Sleeping pills kicking in. Yeah, gratuitous fucking stuff. I think big feet are like the least of the worries that a
I could
kid.
have put her ass right up in here and had her tits popping out like
Right.
that. I could have
Right.
totally gone that way.
But you did. But I'm saying if a parent or a kid's look at this cover and they're like, "Oh, this chick is badass. She's still cute," but it's like if someone's like, "Her feet are showing. They're too big," then that's a problem. But it's not. It's not like you got her boobs squeezing around the spear or anything like that. Which nowadays people would do that. They'd have the spear between her tits. She's squeezing them together. Shit like that. So I think if people have a problem with just big feet, they could just fuck off because it's not that big of a deal.
Well, I'm not gonna tell Chad to fuck out, but I think the problem is a lot of artists now are drawing from 3D models, and they're sort of all drawing this sort of semi-realistic thing. At least what they believe to be realism,
Right.
because in 5 years from now that'll change. Like what was realistic when I was a kid ain't now. What was realistic when I was a kid was Jim Lee,
Right.
right?
Oh yeah.
And before that, like Jack Kirby. You imagine that shit? That was
Right.
realistic when I was like really little.
Giant hands coming at you.
So it's always interesting. Now it's either they're kind of like they look just like humans and models because they're rather drawn over pictures of humans and models, or they look like Adventure Time. You know,
Yeah.
so I'm somewhere in between. But so now I'm adding a second layer of shade. I've been trying to keep my colors fairly simple since I did this whole like not trying to like please people shit. So this is like really based on her having two levels of shade plus gradient shades. So she's got one midtone here. She's got an additional shade layer. And the reason why this shade layer exists is to pop these other shapes forward. See how this is popping this other hair
Hmm.
forward? It's adding more volume. I'm not trying to render the shit out of these shapes, like airbrush the crap out of it, make them all look like
Right.
super realistic. I'm just trying to pop the shape out.
Right. Push and pull shapes forward and backwards.
Yeah, so the shading helps pop out. By contrast, the thing next to it.
Hmm. And a lot of times you told me that when you do stuff like that, your mind will push the shapes forward. So if something's like the back of her neck or hair is darker, it'll push the front of her face forward. You know, your mind automatically kind of does that for you.
She also has a tiger skirt thing, so the easy way to add tiger texture is just create a new layer, set it to here linear burn half. Could be an overlay, whatever. I want it more black than saturated color, and then I just manually drew those little tiger things on there. I guess you could have got a pattern and warped the shit out of it and tried to make it all. You know what I mean? I could see someone spending hours trying to, and they could have just drawn the shit in.
It's like when people used to ask you how you got the watercolor textures, and you're like, I just took some watercolor, put
Scanned
it
it
on a
in.
piece of paper, and then scanned it in. And they're
Yeah.
like, what? And you're like, yeah, it took me 5 minutes. They're like, oh, I
Oh,
spent like 5 hours trying to make watercolor splatters.
this is the soft shade I'm talking about. So what I've done here is see the layer is actually filled with this teal green. That's based on the world. And so now I'm trying to add a soft shade where some of this color would be, was that refracting? It's not refracting, bouncing off her. So she'd have some of the green in her boots. She'd have some of the green in her hair. If that these colors were bouncing in real life, like it's the idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I fill a layer up with light yellow, set it to overlay, and in the mask I'm painting on all the little rim lights and highlights and stuff. This is the fun part. You get to paint all the little light sources and shit, make everything glow.
Right.
Yeah. You gotta be careful during this stage that you don't have so much fun making things glow that you take,
Overdo it.
or you take 6 hours because you're just having a good time. Because by now, the hard part's done. This is all just fun time. Little plushies are fun to draw too. It's a way out of not. Oh yeah, here's a trick too. So if you want to add a extra bright light source, you take the shadow, right? All the shade layers that you have, invert. Don't. It's not restarting, folks. I split the stream up into two. You invert the shade, so it traps the highlight areas. You fill that highlight layer and a new layer with like a light yellow or a white, generally an off yellow, or if it's nighttime, an off blue, and then set that to overlay and blur it, and you get a nice light source based off the color of the temperature that you're going for. Now these glows, see this is filled with yellow, and then there's an outer glow filled with another version of the yellow. So in the mask, I'm just painting in these glows, and all the extra glow is being done by Photoshop. So you get instant little rim light glows.
Mm-hmm.
Without resorting to layer tricks. They're actually physically there, you know. You can still do the layer tricks, like fill a layer up as a color dodge and add on top, but I'm painting in an opaque color versus trying to add a glow light. Does that make sense? You get that dodge and burn look if you do it the other way.
Right. You're adding in more of a bright light color than.
But it's opaque. It's an actual color. It's
Right, that's
not
what I'm saying.
a
It's
layer
not
effect. Yeah.
There's effects that
Well,
make it layer, but you're
it's
just.
not a light effect. Yeah. Sometimes I don't know if I explain it well.
Sometimes you sound a little snooty, but then I dumb it down.
That's true.
Yeah, so it balances out.
You definitely dumb it down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to figure out how much of those glows to add. This is really just because this is pop art, and I need this shit to look cool on a cover.
Right.
There's no reason for her to be glowing like Tron, but it does look cool. It's comic book logic, you know. You just let it go.
As long as it looks good from 5 feet away on a shelf.
Yeah,
That's all that
that's really the goal here. You know, it's like a video game when there's like all that bloom lighting. Like life doesn't look like that. It just looks cool. Like when Louis C.K. talks about the opening to IMAX, you know, just goes there and gets high and watches the blue lights flash at him. So now here I fill this up with blue, and I'm adding a blue little source light. So because there's that blue color in the front, so I figured there'd be a nice little blue bounce secondary light source here to add some more volume into these characters. Again, without adding tons of airbrushing, I'm not trying to go here and airbrush. I could go here and airbrush every little character and round them out perfectly, but I don't know if that makes a better piece, man. Like I did that with the Smash Brothers piece with Bombcat. I don't know if there's that much effort that goes into it. I don't know if you can really tell a difference. Does that make any sense, Brandon? Like, does it really look that much different when you get done? So, but it takes twice as long. So,
yeah.
I am trying to make sure his eyes are round, things like that. Plushy. You ever go to the gift shop at a zoo? It's fucking expensive. Just thinking about that. Like that little parrot would probably be like $89 at the zoo. You know, all you want to do is get like a stuffed animal after a day at the zoo, and your parents are like, I can't afford that shit. It's 89 fucking dollars.
Yeah.
You can get that shit for like a dollar at the dollar store. You have any questions, Brandon, about some of this stuff? Like,
No, I think I've asked them throughout. I mean, this was a pretty simple piece for what you normally do. It's not like, I mean, I can't do it, but there's nothing that I need to ask that
you
is
can have those
super
glows.
complex.
See those little fireflies? You can have that.
I
Those
can
are
do
easy.
that. I can do glows until you make me sit here and do it on the stream.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Now do it now. I can't do it. I can't.
yeah, you add the dab of color, and then you add the wider airbrush around it, and it makes the glow.
You see, you say that, and then when I have you do it, you're like, "What's Photoshop? What's a brush?" You know.
A Cintiq blows up in front of me, just catches fire.
Something else I did here too is you'll see it's a little ragged around the edges. Normally I clean all that stuff up, but on this cover I decided not to see if anyone can tell the difference when it prints, and you can't.
No.
So now I'm not cleaning all that shit up because that takes forever. Like I'm just drawing the line at like I don't know how many years I have left. I'm not spending them doing that. If no one can tell the difference, you can when you
Right.
zoom in, but when it prints, you just can't tell.
No.
Yeah. Oh, look at that little gloss on the eyes there. Because in the jungle, you need some lipstick. She's technically an actress. It's a show about making. It's a show. It's a comic about making a jungle movie or something.
It's a
I,
comic about a show about making. It's a comic about them
I
making a
probably should
jungle
have had
show.
Tom on here to explain that, but I don't really know. I know that's the other thing too. People think because you draw a cover or you work on a comic, you know what it's about. I don't know. I actually drew monstrates for 2 years. I can't tell you their names. That's a wolf dude, green guy, blue something
Right.
or other, the fucking skull in a bucket. I don't know. And we're getting to the end here. This is fun adding all these extra. Now, this is the stuff that I would never want to draw. Could you imagine all these little extra vines, me drawing those, and you having to do flats for every little. It looks weird in comics when they do that, right? They ink every little thing, and then they have
Oh
to go and
yeah.
add comic book coloring to every little bit of foliage. It doesn't look. It looks weird to me. I don't know. Those look better when you just paint them in. The problem is you can never trick a colorist into doing that for you, so that's why I had to start doing my own colors a long time ago. Because I was like, I could just paint the stuff in. But if you paint it in over their colors, they get really mad. I tried that once. I'll just add on top of their colors. Oh, that did not go well. So then I'm painting little extra splats and little extra foliages on top. I try to use those foliage brushes very minimally if I ever use them, and always on top of things to help add a bit. But you never want perfectly brushed out fucking pieces, you know?
Right.
See, I'm trying to add more blue so it has more color in there. I didn't feel it went far enough. That light blue hazy mist, right? Remember the Tarzan? I had to put in the Tarzan Disney cartoon. I'm like, I got the Phil Collins thing going on.
Right.
You know, you're a man now. I'm like, she's a man. It's a horrible soundtrack, but it took me back to 1999.
Oh man, nostalgia.
I was in the army. It's not nostalgia. So it makes me old.
What was that? World War II you were in?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
back
Well, I was
then.
in Germany.
Nam.
Yeah. Nam. Yeah, back in Nam. Nam, Germany. So these are all those little touches. If you got time to do, great. I'm trying to see if a backdrop would help, like a drop shadow. I think I give up on that idea. I don't remember keeping that. And then I was like, maybe I could grab some more trees and add some more tree textures in here. None of that worked out. I was trying to find like a get a lot of foliage without trying card free thing going, but I don't know.
So at this point, you're pretty much almost done.
When
You're
I'm trying to
just
add little
seeing what
rays,
would
yeah, I'm
look
trying to
good.
see how I can like I step back from it and like I'm trying to see maybe I can add a little extra rays, maybe I can pop something out a little bit better.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes I'll just if I have the time, I will wait an entire night, come back and look at it the next day, which that's crazy, right? But you don't have much time with deadlines, and Tom really needed this for launch, so that wasn't much time for that. But I am trying to here paint in little blues. So you grab this blue here, and then you go, well, that means there'll be blue over there. So it kind of makes sense, right?
Right.
So this is how you can start to pull colors from your piece and keep your color harmony going without trying to add a bunch of extra colors and turn into a giant rainbow fucking kaleidoscope drawing.
Just so everything like is cohesive through the whole piece.
Yeah, you know, and it has a lot of implied detail just by all these little extra bits and pieces added on, and makes you feel like people got their money's worth. Man, I always it always bugged me as a kid when you get a really cool cover and the interior sucked. You know, but when you got someone like
Right.
Jen who can draw, you're like, well, if I fuck the cover up, you know, like, I'm never gonna hear the end of it. You know, like,
Yeah.
so can't be that guy. You know, who did that shitty cover? You know, so you never want to be like, I would have got that book, Jen, but your cover sucked. Like, what? Oh shit. You know, I don't want to be responsible.
Right. I mean, that's the first thing people see is the cover. So even if the inside sucks, you got to make that cover look good.
My favorite is when I do this. They go, "Who's your colorist?" I'm like, Brandon. He did all the work. That's almost done. Little trick too, you can fill a layer up with black, set to color dodge, and add all nifty glows. Look, I could add a Tron glow to that. I was gonna add this little cool, like you know in the Turtles games where they have that light trail.
Hmm.
I was gonna add that, but then I remember the logo's supposed to go right there. See, and that ain't gonna work. So I turned the logo on. And I'm like, yeah. So then what I did is I set up these little sprinkle brushes, and I added in the color dodge these little extra little water splat glows, and they added those little shiny ding ding, little burst star things. And did I keep that drop shadow? I think I'm gonna turn that off at some point. I keep going back to that. Like maybe I can. I'm trying to add depth. I think it's like connected. Feels like she's like this spear is somewhat connected here, so I'm trying to haze it a little bit. And I believe we are done. Oh, a little trick too, folks. Let me pause this real quick. A little trick you can do is there's this thing called, what is that called? It's like a lens trick where the lens looks a little off. Refraction. They do it in games, like No Man's Sky does it as like a texturing effect. So you can flatten your art here, and then what you do is you create a copy. You double click, and then in that layer properties, you'll be able to see red, blue, green. You turn off red, click OK, and then take this whole image and just move it to the right a little bit, and it makes it look a little 3D-ish. It's a camera effect. And then you just airbrush out around the face and some of the more areas you want to be in focus, and it'll make things in the background look a little bit out of focus without using a blur. Because the blur looks forced. You know what that means, Brandon? Like it looks forced if you just blur everything. But
Hmm.
with that little bit of an effect, I know you're not the biggest fan of it, Brandon, but it looks nice because you have, I don't remember you were like,
Yeah.
I don't like it, but I'm like you have poor taste, so I don't really trust that. But
I do as I look around my apartment and I see all this art from this guy called Rad
yeah,
RAD.
well, if I like it and you tell me you don't like it, then you should just trust me, like because what do you know? So let's go back into the piece. Let's open it up. We can take another look at it. Oh shucks, here we go. This is the final cover. Oh, that's the low res version. Let's get if we can get the high res. Let's see if yeah, so we can kind of zoom in, and you can see like here's all those little splatters I was adding, like in the color dodge. That
Hmm.
just adds little extra bits of texture. But because it's in the color dodge, it creates like a layering effect, right? And then if you see here, see how it's off right there. That's because that layer right here, it's got the little red halo. It's just because you turn off the channel and you move the layer over, and it creates that little effect. And you can see here's where I added the little shiny glows. And there's her big ass foot. And I did have to recolor their logo to fit my cover because I didn't like the way their logo was colored. So fuck that shit. I make my own. So and then at the end too, here I added those little splatters and a color dodge layer on top. I added. And when you zoom out, oh wow, it's so pretty. And look, see, after Todd. Oh, we're great friends. That's it. Brandon, you have any questions?
Total time on this whole piece.
I don't know. Thanks.
All
Let's
right.
find out. Let's just, we can take a look. Let's go to YouTube. Let's check out all my porn collection, right? Let's go to, right? Like, what do you got open, Rob? It's just from fonts, folks. Chill out. So we'll go to the video manager. And let's go scroll down. Let's do some math here. Okay, I want you to write these numbers down, Brandon. We're gonna go backwards.
Got my pen handy.
Let's see how long this shit took. I'm curious. You've piqued my curiosity. So
I'm
okay, here we
glad
go.
I asked the question.
Okay, 3 hours 40. What is that? 2:10. Let's just say it's 2:11. 2 hours 11. 3:40. 3 hours and 40.
Mm-hmm.
That's just for the coloring. That's about 6 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The inking was another 2.5 hours. All right. No, wait.
Okay.
That's 2.5. 224 plus 236. See, now the reason why that took an extra 2.5 is because I did a re-ink the vines, which I didn't have to do.
I
could have saved
11 hours, give or
Could
take.
could have saved 2 hours. Not doing that. Right.
So you had 11 hours.
Took me 4 hours to draw her, and I didn't get the
15
string.
hours.
15 hours for that cover.
Plus let's say 6 hours for me to do flats, 5 hours.
Well, it shouldn't take you 6 hours to do flash because you're
I don't
incredible.
know
You
how
don't
much-
operate at a professional level. Your times don't count. We'll get back to you in 4 years.
Fantastic.
So, 15 hours to draw, concept draw, ink, and color. It's pretty good, bro. All right? It's pretty good. One dude plus you. 1.5 dudes. Well, you're kind of two. 3.5 dudes. Brandon's 2. 2.5.
You're cutting into my sleep time.
You don't appreciate this late at night, Brandon?
No, I should have been in bed 42 minutes ago.
All right. Well, tell everyone where they can find the mighty Tater. Where can they find you?
Please add me and follow me on Instagram at leadheavy, Lead heavy.
You can find me eating boba here on the channel relatively soon. Actually, I'm going to be streaming in about an hour. I got to ink Toe Jam and Earl. So if you guys want to come back on an hour and hang out with me while I work on Toe Jam and Earl, we can do that. And Brandon, we got to talk about, we have a conversation sometime. Maybe we'll stream it about layering backgrounds and how we're going to do that moving forward. Remember how we had that conversation we do in After Effects?
Yep.
We got to get back to that conversation. So we'll be talking about that. But I'm going to be inking Toe Jam and Earl until my wife comes home, and then we got to go over moving stuff. So, folks, I'm not going to be streaming that much over the next couple weeks because I'm moving from San Diego to Boise, Idaho. And I have to be available to handle all that shit. But I'll be on, off, and on. So, all right, folks, I will be back on in a little while. See you soon. Say bye, Brandon.
Bye-bye.
Thumb, 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 thumb. Brandon. Is.
Tired.
Tots.